New games get announced all the time, but some of them seem to fade into the shadows as time goes on. With few updates or no official cancellations, these forgotten games will just leave you wondering where they stand. If you're not subbed and you want to yearn for new details together, why not like this video and subscribe? Alright, let's go. Announced at E3 2017, Skull and Bones is a pirate-themed, open-world action game that seems to be a bit of an evolution to the ship combat scene in Assassin's Creed IV Black Flag. Aside from single-player and multiplayer game trailers, we haven't seen much else since E3 2018, and E3 2019 was skipped entirely. Despite the silence, the game still seems to be in motion though. A TV adaptation with Atlas Entertainment for Skull and Bones was even announced last year, which means all signs do point to an eventual release. Ubisoft says it remains committed to launching the game and supporting it for years to come, with more details coming in 2021. You might remember a little gem called Street Fighter X Tekken, which was a crossover that brought some 3D Tekken favorites over to the 2D Street Fighter realm and featured interesting crew battles. Now, if you reverse that concept, you'll get Tekken X Street Fighter, which was supposed to be the 3D follow-up version of the crossover and was announced way back in 2010 for PS3 and Xbox 360. It wasn't until 2016 that the game's producer, Katsuhiro Harada, announced that the game was no longer in development. Around that same time, when we reached out to publisher Bandai Namco, it stated it was waiting for the right time to release Tekken X Street Fighter, but was focusing on DLC for Tekken 7. One of those DLC characters ended up being Akuma from Street Fighter 4, Focused Attack and all, which showed that the concept was being worked on to some extent. What makes things more interesting is that nearly a decade later, Harada turned to Twitter and used a Twitter poll to see if fans were still waiting on the game. So even if it's still on hold, it's definitely still on Harada's mind. Hollow Knight Silksong is the sequel to Hollow Knight, where you play as Hornet, Hollow Knight's secondary protagonist. Picking up from one of the original game's 5 endings, Silksong will take you through a unique world similar to its predecessor, as we've seen from the game's demo at E3 2019. Fans are eagerly waiting for a release date, but the game's developer, Team Cherry, made it clear that it will only release the game when it's ready, and when it matches the quality and scale of Hollow Knight. With Team Cherry creating never-before-seen areas that seem bigger than anything they've made before, remaining tight-lipped about the new gameplay mechanics, and providing new experiences through Hornet-like dialogue, there will be a lot to discover in Silksong when it's finally here. Deep Down is now in its 5th year on our missing games list after being officially revealed in 2013, a long 7 years ago. There were trailers and reveals for Capcom's PS4 exclusive dungeon crawler being released all the way up to 2015, with big news like the game being free to play and the announcement of an open beta that never arrived. Since then, the entire team originally developing Deep Down have moved on from the project, which might sound bad, but Capcom did renew the trademark for Deep Down in 2017, which starts to raise questions about the game being on hiatus for the next gen to fulfill its intended vision. It's looking bleak, but Yoshinori Ono, previously of Capcom, said that if the trademark is renewed, then there's still a chance, although trademark filings don't necessarily signal a company's intent to use them. Let's see if that will be the case before or after we hit the decade mark. Inspired by favorites like The Legend of Zelda and the works of Studio Ghibli, Baldo is a hand-drawn action-adventure RPG that was supposed to be a timed exclusive for the Nintendo Switch for the summer of 2020. Baldo was delayed indefinitely in September, but there were signs of life from the game as recently as this past October via Twitter, but no word on an official release date. Baldo is said to be a puzzle and dungeon game at its core, but has plenty of secrets inside. A project 15 years in the works is, hopefully, in its final stretch and taking advantage of today's technology, as the idea behind Baldo originated back in the Game Boy Advance era. Ever since the trailer's release, I've been excited to jump into this magical Miyazaki-like world and learn more about Baldo and its unique looking cast of characters. But for now, we'll just have to wait. Call me optimistic, but with next gen officially in our hands, I'm remaining hopeful that it will improve the chances of seeing some of these titles make their way to us soon. There are even more games that are MIA, and if you want to see our full list, then make sure you check out GameSpot.com.